This stack is heavier than my trauma. What's up, y'all? Let's talk about all of the books I have not finished this year. Yes? How come every time I turn on this camera, you appear? If you're not gonna give me some money, go lay down. These are all of the books that I have in the works, and these are books that are not even on my December TBR. This stack is heavier than my trauma. Okay, look at this. Ah. All right, it's a lot of books. It's a lot of books, as Gavin would say, okay? And, oh, fuck. All right, I guess we'll start by talking about this one. Oh, shit, fuck. These are all the books that, okay, drama queens that I have started this year but have neglected to finish. And we don't want these to be DNFs, okay? These are all the books that I'm currently reading, and I've still got some that I'm reading the audiobooks for. So we got a lot of books. All right, so without further ado, let us just get started by talking about The Art of Prophecy by Wesley Chu. The reason that these books don't have covers is because I'm in the process of reading them. Now, The Art of Prophecy is one of my most highly anticipated releases, arguably my most anticipated fantasy release. And as you can tell, I have a lot of thoughts and I'm enjoying the shite out of it. I'm reading it slowly because it's so good and I'm annotating every single line. So I'm actually farther than I thought. I'm on page 350 and there's roughly 500 and some change. 523 pages. I started reading this with Tammy and she abandoned me like my father, and I just haven't picked it up since she bailed on our buddy read. And it's so funny because I'm dying to continue, but I just knew the new month rolled over, so I had to start a new TBR and all of that, and I just have not finished it. The Art of Prophecy is an epic fantasy ode to martial arts and magic, the story of a spoiled hero, an exacting grandmaster, and an immortal god king, from the #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Lives of Tao. It is incredible. I absolutely love the teacher of the spoiled kid. If you love that grumpy, old, all-knowing instructor meets shitty, spoiled, talentless boy king, then you're gonna love this book. The writing is so good. It is hilarious. The magic of the story leaps off of the page. The characters are so real. I love how gory it can be at times, and I love the magic in the book. The teacher, who is my absolute favorite, she's an older woman that she's seen a lot of shit and she's not afraid to tell you about it. And she has wind magic where she can jump on the wind and use the wind to do her own bidding. She's just absolutely incredible. I love the multi-POV, I love the pacing. There's nothing about the story that I'm not enjoying. I also have another character who's part of an ancient order, and she gives big earth sign vibes. This is a really great book for fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is incredible, and I just cannot wait to continue reading. Oh my god, I have 2 tab thingies in here. I'm sorry, I'm only on page 171. This was just haphazardly placed.
I've been looking for these.
I'm so sorry that this video started with chaos, but y'all knew what you were getting into. You knew who I was when you met me. So the next book that I have here is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson, which should not be in this pile because I finished it and gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So you're gonna see me talk about that in my wrap up. I just finished that book. And the next one is one that I have been reading for 6 months. I've been reading this book for 6 months. It's one of those books that I really enjoy when I'm reading it, and then once I put it down, I'm like, I act like it weighs 500 pounds when it comes time to pick it back up. That book is The Lonely Castle in the Mirror. This was a book that everybody was on the back of earlier in this year. Bookstagrammers were taking the most beautiful scenic photos with this book. It's very fairy tale-esque, it's very Miyazaki-esque, and it's incredible. It is incredible. I got to page 246, which is pretty good considering that it's like 346 pages. This is a Japanese classic. I believe it came out 20 years ago, and this is the first time it's been translated into English, I believe, or it's been re-released, that kind of thing, because all of a sudden America just discovered it. So we're acting like it's brand new because that's what we do in this country. And just look at this cover. It's really beautiful, and we're following this little girl who has been bullied her whole life. She developed the fear of going outside. Is it agoraphobia? She stops going to school and it becomes very difficult for her to leave her house, and then all of a sudden this mirror appears, and she finds that when she goes into the mirror, there's a whole other world. There's a castle behind the mirror, and she finds a bunch of other kids that are in the mirror also not going to school. And this creepy fox child thing says that she's hidden a key within the palace, and that whoever finds the key first gets a wish granted. But the caveat is, once the wish gets granted, everyone will lose all memories of the castle. It's a really good story about friendship and healing, and it's got a great magical component, and the writing is fabulous. It's very, very fantastic. I just need to continue it. So that's another book that I have to read before the end of the world, end of the year. And then we have this behemoth, The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. I am almost done with Interview of a Vampire, which is the first book. And I'm reading this for my Blackula experiment, which this was supposed to go live in October. And I'm just not done with it yet. I'm not done. It's a bigger commitment than I thought it was gonna be. Because this series, it's just thousands of pages, okay? But I'm like, it's literally the Bible, like, and this is a classic gothic vampire story that I'm very, very much enjoying, even though Lewis is such a crybaby. So we're following, it starts out with this man who's been turned into a vampire, and his vampire teacher, Lestat, is just the most whiny, vapid, annoying little creature that's ever lived. And they have this little vampire child named Claudia that's with them, and Claudia is really creepy. And it's very good, it's well written, but it's slow, it's very philosophical, it can be very meandering, but I do love the action, I do love the proselytizing, I do enjoy the book itself. It's just, it's hard, it's a hard series to binge read, okay? I'll read like 100, 200 pages and I'll be like, okay, that's enough, I'm exhausted, I just need to put it down. Especially dealing with Lewis, whatever his freaking name is, our main character. Lewis is always crying. I think I said Lestat was always crying, but no, it's Lewis. Lewis doesn't want to be a vampire, and he makes sure on every single page that you know that. Then we have a book that I should be disowned for not finishing, and that is The Heart of the Sun Warrior. I've been so excited for the sequel to the Celestial Kingdom to come out, Heart of the Sun Warrior, Daughter of the Moon Goddess. We all read and loved that last year. It was a book club pick for my Patreon, and I feel like every single one of my patrons loved it. I don't think any one of us gave it less than four stars. We adored it, and all of booktube was absorbed within the story, and I could not have possibly been more excited for Heart of the Sun Warrior.
Why haven't you finished it yet?
I don't know. Who is Jesse? I don't know them, because the fact that I haven't finished this book is a betrayal to myself and all that I stand for. I was so excited to return to this amazing Chang'e inspired book. It's woven with Chinese mythology. The writing is lyrical. We have Xingyin, who is one of my favorite protagonists. She is smart, she is empathic, she knows how to get shit done. And there's like a great component in book one, if you haven't read it, where she has to go to this palace in order to curry favor from the emperor, in order to get a favor from him so that she can free her mother Chang'e from her celestial prison in the sky. But what she finds is so much more. She finds power, she finds family, she finds ambition, she finds dragons, she finds magical artifacts, and gets into this love triangle. And I hate love triangles, but this is one of two love triangles that I've ever actually stand in my entire life. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm on the team of the guy who everybody hates. I think he's just a little misunderstood. All he needs is some therapy and a shower and he'll be aight. Honestly, the number one thing that I'm excited for in Heart of the Sun Warrior is the dragons. They were introduced towards the end of Daughter of the Moon Goddess. What? I loved them. I was very fascinated, and I want to see where they fall into the story. I want to see if they will end up breaking their peace pact and starting to burn shit down, because if the things that happened to me that happened in the dragons in book one, this whole world would be ash. We have Tripping Arcadia by Kit Makist, and I never know how to say his name. Is it Makist? Is it Makist? Is it Maquist? This is the cover. Beautiful, gorgeous, right? I mean, so many of us were anticipating this book, myself included, and as of right now, I am on page 217. So we've got this much of the book left, and it is not letting me down, but the problem is I was reading this and House of Hunger at the same time. And I loved House of Hunger so much. I put this down to focus on House of Hunger, and once I finished it and resumed this, it just pales in comparison. So I need to just read some other books and then get back into this one, because right now I am bored, and it's because House of Hunger just went, oh my god, Akasha's hair is the gift that keeps on giving. It's because House of Hunger was so incredible, because of the fact that this book is similar to House of Hunger. Does that make fucking, I don't know. Like, look, every time I hear myself talk, while editing this video, I'm sure I'm gonna wanna shoot myself in both of my feet. I do. If you have not read Tripping Arcadia, this is a story of a young med school dropout who resolves to get revenge on the wealthy family that destroyed her father's life. And she decides to use her experience with herbs to create a poison and begin to slowly poison this family after they hire her to be their doctor's assistant. So many boxes are being checked. You have gothic storytelling, you have dark academia. Tell me how I'm supposed to breathe with no hair. No hair, no hair. You have a girl who has stepped out of academia. I love that. You've got a medical component. I love medical stories so deeply, especially medical thrillers. You have revenge. You have a sapphic relationship because she starts to develop feelings for the daughter of the wealthy family. And I love the storytelling. It is very, very good. It is great witch and earth vibes. I would definitely describe this as goblin core. I'm enjoying it, but it is a slow book, and there are these parties that this family, so much hair, there are these parties that this family throws where everyone gets together and does drugs, so it's very Wolf of Wall Street-y, and great commentary on obscene wealth and the 1% and what they do to everybody beneath them. I think this is a fantastic book. You know that saying, eat the rich? I feel that this book's premise is about how the rich cannibalize the poor. I could analyze this all day, every day, by an NB author, an NB and trans masculine author. It's phenomenal. So I'm going to be posting about this over on my NB book club, which is on Instagram, and doing a full in-depth review, so stay tuned. We also have started voting on NB book club for the next 3 book club picks. So stay tuned on the Instagram and our stories where the voting is gonna take place. Next up, we have The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. This is one book that I've been anticipating for so many years. I wanna say 3 years, ever since his debut, which was The Vanished Birds. It was this incredible space opera that was as gay as possible, as gay comes. And I loved it deeply and dearly. Now this is Simon Jimenez's adult fantasy book. And the reason that I have been reading this so slowly, I mean, it came out on my birthday, it came out early in May. The reason that I'm still not done with it yet is because it is so confusing. I don't know what's going on. I love being confused. Some readers hate that feeling, they don't like it. I enjoy being mentally challenged. That came out wrong. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy being mentally stimulated, and not just mentally stimulated, but like having to really think through a book. I like books that make me have to slow down in order to understand what's going on. And I think the reason that I'm like that is because of the way that my neurodivergence is set up. I move very fast, and the only way that the best way that I learn and take in information is by having several things going on at once. Like, I'm the person who will have a TV show on while reading, and I'm paying attention to both. I am the person who likes to be reading multiple books at once, and I remember where I am in all of them. I remember what's going on in all of them, no matter how much time has passed. Even with this book, I started it months ago. I didn't get very far. I can still tell you everything that happened. It's just the way that my brain works. I have a really good capacity for things that I read, and because I'm just like, go, 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 and like I always listen to my audiobooks on double speed minimum, because I'm like that, I love a book that makes me have to be like, whoa, 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 slow down. And that's what this is. The downside to it is I'm reading it at a snail's pace. And again, since this was on an earlier TBR, I started new TBRs and just haven't picked it back up. So this is also a book that I'm going to be trying to get to before the year ends, and it's just absolutely insane. I believe Simon Jimenez is a Filipino author. I originally thought that he was Latin, but someone said that he's Filipino, but I haven't been able to find any real information about his identity. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I want to do a Asian inspired reading vlog because so many of these fantasies that I'm in the middle of happen to be by Asian authors. So if you do know Simon Jimenez's identity, I would love to include this book in that video. So comment down below and straighten me out. Hopefully y'all will do a better job of straightening me out than society did. Next up, I am also currently reading A Minor Chorus. This is the NB Book Club pick for November, my non-binary book club. This is by a two-spirit and gay indigenous author, and the protagonist of this book is a gay indigenous Cree male. And I'm very, very excited about this book because even though I am only on page 38, I have a feeling that this is going to be one of my most favorite books of the year. There is no way that this doesn't end up on my top 10. It is that important. It is that incredible. It is that consuming. And the reason that I have slowed down on reading this is because I bought this from Pango and I didn't realize that I was sold an ARC. And I'm very upset about the fact that this person sold an ARC because your ARCs are not supposed to be for sale. Like it says it right on here. It's just not ethically okay to sell ARCs. And so I felt really silly that I didn't realize it. And the reason that I stopped reading it is because I want to wait for a finished copy to arrive so that I can quote, because that's the reason why you're not supposed to quote ARCs, is because you don't know if there's going to be changes to the finished published product, and the authors don't want incorrect quotes from their books floating out. Does that make sense? And I want to quote every single line from this book. I mean, look how incredible these annotations are. I am just annotating the crap out of this book, and it's so small, but this is basically another one of my favorite tropes where we have a person who is leaving academia and is trying to find themselves. So he leaves his academic institution, he becomes very disenfranchised with it, very disenchanted with it rather, and returns to his hometown to kind of seek community there and to re-fall in love with academia. It sounds like a very kind of boring, quiet premise, but I promise you, if you like damaged main characters, if you like gay characters, if you like academia-esque books, you have to read this one, especially if you like gorgeous, poetic, prose-heavy writing. This is the book for you. The last two physical books I have here is The Genesis of Misery by Nian Yang. This was my, oh, that's right, this was my most highly anticipated science fiction fantasy book of the entire year. I was so excited about this, and I'm only on page 87. Now, the reason that I'm reading this so slowly is because, again, I am slow when it comes to science fiction because it tends to be a little bit more confusing and it forces me to have to slow down in order to understand. That's why this is a really, really, really complex book, especially if you're like me and you don't read a whole lot of science fiction. You might read this more slowly. It is sci-fi fantasy, which is pretty freaking awesome, and it is also from a non-binary author that I absolutely adore. So what The Genesis of Misery is about, a individual named Misery Nomaki who uses she/they pronouns, and she is suffering from this space sickness. It starts with delusions and hallucinations and ends with like skin falling off, and it just ends pretty horribly. And she's at the early onset of this disease and trying to get it sorted, and she begins seeing this angel that she knows isn't real, but she's still seeing it. While all this is happening, she gets labeled as the Messiah, and these people basically put her up on a pedestal and are like, yay, she's our Messiah, and she's like, no, I'm just insane. So there's a big religious component. There is a really amazing magic world building situation going on. I love the characters. Misery she's an unlikable, likable character. She's one of those, and I'm very, very much enjoying it. This synopsis is really intense and in depth, so there's far more to that synopsis, but I try not to give too long and lengthy of a synopsis, but I feel like especially with fantasy and sci-fi books, the synopsises go so long, you know what I mean? But that's basically the story. That's basically the story. We're following a ruffian who is dealing with reality, and it's pretty freaking good. Then we have the book that I'm reading with my patrons for this month in November, and that is The Cloisters by Katie Hayes. This is a book that everybody and their mama is reading right now, and I was pretty excited that the Patreon kind of forced me to pick it up because I was like, yes, let's check this out. Y'all know that I have a really fraught relationship with hyped books, and this you don't get much more hyped than this. So this is a dark academia thriller where we are following this woman, and she gets accepted. She gets like an internship at one of her favorite institutions. She's a very troubled girl. I believe her name is Anna, and trying to escape a very troubled past when she finds this deck of tarot cards, this ancient deck of tarot cards that may or may not have the ability to predict the future. Hearing that there's a murder in this book, most dark academia books have a murder, and apparently there's a murder, so excited to get to it. As of right now, I'm on page 40 and we're like well over halfway through the month, so I need to get it together and get this Patreon vlog up. I'm enjoying it, but I'm just not obsessed with it, if that makes sense. So we're just gonna see. We're gonna see where we end up with this. Now I'm going to consult Goodreads to see what else I am marked as currently reading over there. Like, do you see how much I have to do? Do you see how much I have to finish? And this is before December, so I need to finish these books and the rest of the books that I haven't started that were on my November TBR. I didn't post a November TBR, but I still journaled it out, and I want to get it done. Like, I want to hit my reading goals, and it doesn't really look like that's gonna happen if I don't get it together. I'm also reading Night of the Living Rez, which is a short story collection from an Indigenous author. And I started this on audio. Now, the reason that I haven't finished it yet is because the audiobook is putting me to sleep. My problem is the narrator for the audio is so soothing. Their voice is so soothing that I just want to sleep. And these are horror stories, but ones that are more literary horror. I also have A Killing Fire by Faye Snowden. That is a thriller that I started a couple months ago. It's a black thriller. I started it for Blackween, I think, and I just didn't get around to finishing it. And basically it is about an FBI agent who is trying to escape her father's legacy as a serial killer. And the book gets really thrillery when she is accused of being just like her father after she shoots and kills someone. Now we have 2 more physical books before we switch to talking about the 4 audiobooks that I am still working my way through. The first physical book that I have is Sisters in Arms. I started this book back in January. This book came to me by way of Book of the Month, and I thought that it sounded really interesting. You have 2 black women who both have various aspirations in life, and they both decide to join the military in order to fulfill their goals. They have to learn to navigate the rigors of the military, as well as the racism from their white female soldier counterparts, as well as the racism from within the military structure itself. I do love a good historical fiction story, and I do love a good war book. This was just an unfortunate situation where I did not finish it in the month that I started and simply put it down to focus on other books and failed to pick it back up. I am not gonna lie, I have zero interest in continuing with this story, but I feel compelled to finish it simply because I started it. I really only DNF books when I'm not liking them. So I have no problem starting a book and being like, okay, I'm just not in the mood for this, and picking it up years later. I did that with Anna Karenina, the horror classic spin on it where everyone was a robot. It took me 10 years to finish that book, and unfortunately I hated it. I gave it 2 stars. It was one of the worst books I ever read in my life. Oh wait, y'all, I'm bugging. That is the last book that I'm reading physically. We're gonna wrap up this video by talking about the audiobooks I still have yet to finish. I have one called Yonder, which is marked as finished on Goodreads. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because I just know that that's what the book is going to be, and if I need to change my rating, I will. This is a very underhyped book where we are following enslaved individuals living on a plantation within the South, and it is about their loves and relationships while being enslaved peoples. They have formed community within each other, but all of that gets shaken up when a minister comes to town and he starts to preach independence. And basically what this does is create divisions between the enslaved individuals on the plantation. It's multi-POV, and you're following the fallout of what happens after this mysterious minister comes to town. It is one of the most beautifully written books that I've ever read. It's been described as The Water Dancer Meets The Prophet, both 2 incredible books that do not get enough love on booktube. The writing is so forceful and quiet and powerful. It is one of the most impactful books that I have started to read this year, and the reason that I haven't finished it yet is because I think I started it for Blackathon. The audiobook narrator's voice is so beautiful and lulling, and I tend to listen to my audiobooks at night, and every time I just fall asleep because the narrator is so good, but I'm determined to finish it. Then we have Noor, which I believe is the 4th adult novel from one of my favorite authors, top 3 favorite authors of all time, none other than Dr. Neri Okorafor. Love her. Now this is an African futuristic novella where we are following a disabled artificial organism. Essentially, having been born disabled, her parents have tried to pray away her disability, leading to her getting augmentations to replace her body parts. This book has been described as a quiet rumination on biotechnology and futurism and the state of humanity, the places that it can potentially go, and I'm so excited to continue with this. The audiobook narrator is incredible. My issue with this, the reason that I haven't finished it, is because I continue to just start listening to the voice and not pay attention to the narration because this person's voice is so good. So thankfully, one of my amazing subscribers sent me a physical copy of Noor earlier on in this year. So I'm just gonna switch to reading it physically because I feel like if I try and continue with the audiobook, there's just no way I'm gonna finish it. Then we have Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. This is one of my most highly anticipated releases, one of my most anticipated literary fiction books that I've ever had. And this comes from the Pulitzer Award winning author who wrote All the Light You Cannot See, or All the Light We Cannot See, sorry. One of my favorite books. It is incredible, and he has not written anything since All the Light We Cannot See, which I believe came out in 2017. So I've been highly anticipating this book, which was released at the start of the year. I began to read it on Libro FM immediately. I found that this book is simply way too complex for me to read audibly. I have to get my hands on a physical copy because there's just no way I'm going to be able to absorb this story in the audio format. I have started this audiobook cover to cover 4 times. I have restarted it 4 times, and every single time I end up getting lost. Despite the fact that the plot is absolutely incredible, it's simply just too delightfully convoluted and complex in order for my tiny brain to grasp. This is a story about a seamstress who dreams of a better life, and she stumbles upon this long lost tale of a boy named Atheon, I believe, and his life's aspiration is to turn into a bird so that he can fly to this utopia in the sky. And we are also following a boy who is a shepherd's son. I believe he has a disability, or he was born on an unfavorable day, and so the shepherd is eager to get rid of him and kind of sells him into the war. This little boy is really well known for raising oxen that are going to eventually be used, and when the soldiers find out about his ability, they come to his hometown and basically, you know, force him to be their animal tamer. And then we jump forward to the present, where we are at a school and this teacher is instructing students on the famous play of Atheon, who, as you can probably tell, has become famous now in modern day, become a legend, kind of Shakespearean sort of thing. We are also racing to the finish line where a troubled teen has placed a bomb within the library and time is running out. So all of these storylines end up intersecting, and it's just going to be this big epic clash, which was exactly what All the Light We Cannot See was. It is incredible the way that Anthony Doerr is able to juggle so much in one book and pull it off. I have no doubt that he is going to make this complex book come together seamlessly and brilliantly. So I just need to get myself a physical copy and continue on with the ride. Finally, we have a book that I am currently reading. I started it this month, and that is none other than Shutter Island. I have a very good feeling that this book is going to end up on part 2 of my books that I love but refuse to recommend. The first video I made went viral, and so I want to make a follow-up because I know that y'all want me to continue that discussion. This book has some problems with it, but we're gonna see how I feel at the end of it. I'm guaranteeing that it's going to make it into that video, but we will see. Now, what Shutter Island is about is this man who is sent to a very remote island where there is a psychiatric facility for the criminally insane, and he's trying to investigate the missing case of a patient who just seems to have vanished from her room into thin air. As y'all probably know, this was made into a fantastic film starring Leonardo DiCaprio, which is how I heard about it. I watched the film when it came out. I absolutely loved it. I was a kid when the film came out, and I have very different feelings about this type of plot now as an adult, but I am going to say that the audiobook narration is really good, and the story itself, I am absolutely hooked. I'm thinking about this book all the time. Those are all of the books that I started this year and have yet to finish. My goal is to finish as many of these books as possible while also completing my December TBR and maybe squeezing in a few last minute comfort passion reads along the way. We will see. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm going to try my absolute best. What are some books that you unintentionally have DNF'd this year? How many of them do you have? Let me know what they are, and let's discuss in the comment section down below. Don't forget about my Patreon, where I make content exclusively for my patrons. Last month I did a dedicated vlog to reading Babel. We do a lot of fun stuff over there, and next month's dedicated video is going to be a really cozy sit down where I reflect on my reading year. So I'm very, very excited about that. The changes to my Patreon in 2023 are huge. They're very immense, and I'm incredibly excited about it. So now is a wonderful time to join. But if you are not interested in Patreon at this time, you can check out other ways to connect with me via the description box below. Also, the holiday season is coming up, so do not forget about my Etsy shop, where I sell a TBR card game. Perfect gift for the readers in your life or for yourself. Stay safe, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and I can't wait to see you in my next video.